Hare Krishna. We have gathered at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada in this wonderful temple of Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, and Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, in the presence of His Holiness Radhanath Swami and so many exalted devotees. We are entering the new year, 2010, the next decade. And on such occasions, we take stock of what we did and how we did in the last year or the last decade, and what we want to do in the next year. Studies have shown, and probably many of us have experienced, that most New Year's resolutions are broken within the first week. I don't recall the exact figures, but most are broken in the first week. Still more are broken in the first month, and almost all are broken in the first 3 months. So, why does this happen? And what can we do? Well, man is a creature of habit. We have developed certain habits over the last so many years and perhaps lifetimes. And to change one's habit requires some effort, some desire, determination, and effort. Another study has shown that when one is trying to develop a new habit, he has to consistently strive to adhere to the new principle for 30 days. It takes a real constant, conscious effort for the first 30 days. After the first 30 days, one is sort of equally disposed to the new habit as to the old habit. And so for the next 60 days, one has to make a conscientious effort, but it doesn't involve so much force, because one is already starting to develop the new habit. And after a year, if one has been consistent and conscientious, that new habit really becomes a habit. And without much conscious effort, one will adhere to the principle that one set out to follow in the beginning. Now, what new habits do we want to develop in the next year? That, of course, will depend on our goals. I recall when I visited Pune some years ago, the Malhotra brothers arranged a program for me in the town hall or some hall, and the general in charge of the southern command of the Indian Army attended the program. And after the talk, he asked a good question. That in our efforts in the army, in our lives, first we have to be very clear what the goal is. If we're very clear what the goal is, then we will adopt the methods that are suitable to achieve the goal. So in essence, he was asking, what is the goal of life? What is the purpose of life? And he himself added, it couldn't possibly be to amass wealth, to get a bigger house or a better car, or more facility for material enjoyment. He said, those can't be the goal of life, because they're temporary. Whatever we have will be finished at the end of the body. So, what is the goal of life? That was his question. Of course, Srila Sanatana Goswami asked the same question of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said that in ordinary circles, people consider me to be very learned, pundit. But I am so learned, I don't even know who I am. So please tell me, Ke Ami, who am I? And what is the goal of life? And Lord Chaitanya replied that by constitution, you are the eternal servant of Krishna. Jive Swarupai Krishnara Nityadas. And the goal of life is to be reinstated in your constitutional position as a loving servant of Krishna. So if someone understands that he's not the body, he's the soul within the body, and his real relationship is not with the body or things that pertain to the body, but his real identity is as the soul, and his real relationship is with the Supreme Soul, then he can adopt the methods that are suitable for reviving his eternal relationship with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people this knowledge, that we're not the body, We are the soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. Our real relationship is with the Supreme Soul. And our duty and goal in life is to revive our eternal relationship with God, with Krishna. And the whole process of sadhana bhakti yoga is to help us to awaken that eternal love for Krishna. Krishna prema nitya siddha, that love is eternally there within the heart, just like fire is there within a match. You just have to strike the match and the fire comes out. So love for Krishna is already there within the heart. We just have to strike the heart by chanting and hearing about Krishna, and that love will come out. And the main process is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. We are in the Hare Krishna temple. We saw the signs on the way. Hare Krishna temple with an arrow. We are somehow part of the Hare Krishna movement. In fact, we are known as Hare Krishna people. So Hare Krishna, we are about Hare Krishna. And by chanting Hare Krishna, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, all the dirty things from the heart are cleansed. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, the blazing fire of material existence is extinguished. And ultimately, our dormant love for Krishna is awakened. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. But there's also a matter of quality to the chanting. In Queen Kunti's prayers to Lord Krishna, she says, Janmaishwarya Shruti Shribir, that people who are on the path of material advancement, who want good birth, material opulence, Janmaishwarya Shruta, material learning, should be physical beauty. They cannot feelingly approach the Lord. And when we chant the holy name, we are trying to approach the Lord. The holy name of Krishna and Krishna himself are the same. Commenting on this verse, Srila Prabhupada remarks that in the scriptures it is said that by once chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can destroy the reactions to more sins than one is able to commit. We are all suffering because of sinful reactions. If we were free from sinful reactions, we would not suffer anymore. And by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, one can eradicate the reactions to more sins than one can commit. But Srila Prabhupada explains, there is a question of the quality of the utterance. And one who is on the path of material progress, Janmaishwarya Shruti Shrivir, cannot approach the Lord with such feeling. But akinchana gochara, the Lord is easily approached by those who are akinchana, who have no material possessions. Now, given that most of our audience are married, or if they're not married, they probably are planning to get married, hoping to get married. So these statements could raise some questions, some doubts. So this word, akinchana, it means without material possessions, or without a sense of false proprietorship. And that allows us, of course there should not be any duplicity in this matter, but that allows us to, for example, have a temple like this. So it's a beautiful property, a large estate. But as long as we're thinking this is Radha Gokulananda's property, this is Srila Prabhupada's property, it's not my property, I'm only here to serve them and to use this property in their service, then we can be free from false proprietorship, false prestige, false designations. And in that mood, we can feelingly chant the holy name, we can feelingly approach Krishna. Otherwise, there's a subtle rivalry going on between us and Krishna. We come into the material world out of envy of Krishna. And in effect, we want to take the position of the Lord. And that desire to be the Lord, Ishwaroham aham bhogi, to be the enjoyer, to be the proprietor, that's actually Krishna's position, to be the controller and the enjoyer and the proprietor. So we, in effect, are trying to take Krishna's position. And we chant Krishna's name, but in a way we're thinking, why should I be chanting Krishna's name? People should be chanting my name. Giriraj Maharaj ki jai.
Giriraj Maharaj ki jai.
That's our sorry plight. That is our sorry plight. We don't want Krishna to be the center. We want to be the center. So we can chant the holy name with ourselves in the center and the holy name in the background. That's our tendency as conditioned souls. And the proper process of chanting is to chant with attention. That means all those thoughts about ourselves, I, me, and mine, those, we let go of those. We let go of those. And we focus on the holy name, which is Krishna. And all the other thoughts are irrelevant. I mean, they may come up, but we don't pay attention to them. We just focus our attention on Krishna, on the holy name of Krishna. And when we do that, we can really feel the presence of Krishna. We can really appreciate that the holy name is Krishna himself, reciprocating with our sincere desire to serve him. So that requires some effort. It's sort of a habit that we think that we're the center of existence and everything revolves around us. We see everything in terms of us and not in terms of Krishna. Someone repeated a saying, and I'm not sure if I remember it exactly, but something like, up to the age of 20, you think everyone's looking at you and they like you. Then from the age of 20 to 40, you think people are looking at you and they don't like you. And then after the age of 40, you realize they weren't even looking at you or thinking about you. So, yeah, we have to sort of get out of this habit of thinking we're the center and we're always thinking about ourselves and everyone else is thinking about us. And know that Krishna's the center. I will tell one personal story here. Ordinarily, I would consider it somewhat confidential, but in this company, I can't keep any such secrets. But I was chanting my rounds on the Santa Claus beach. His Holiness Radhanath Swami knows this beach very well, because sometimes out of his kindness he stays with me in Santa Barbara and we walk and talk on the beach or chant. Anyway, on this occasion, I was sitting alone, chanting, and, with attention, with the effort to be attentive. And I was thinking of different people who are close to me and feeling how much they're suffering. Not just thinking, but feeling their pain. And as I continued chanting, I started to expand that sense of feeling for others to people I knew who weren't so close to me, and then to the people on the beach. There weren't many, but there were a few people surfing. And I was just really feeling their suffering. I mean, Prabhupada joked that the surfers were actually sufferers. But I was actually feeling their suffering. And then it went beyond the human beings. There are pelicans at the beach. They fly very high, and then suddenly they just zoom down and crash into the water. So I understood they're hovering high in the sky. They're looking for prey. And when they see something they think they can eat, they just come straight down, crash into the water. So ordinarily I would think, oh, how picturesque, flying high and diving into the ocean. But I was feeling they're in anxiety. They're hungry. They need food. And they're like looking, where can I get food? Where can I get food? And then they see something, and they come straight down, and it's bound to be a shock to their system. I mean, even though they're birds, but still, coming from that height at that philosophy, crashing into the water, it's bound to be a shock to their system. And then they don't know if they're actually going to get that fish or not. And whatever it is, whenever they come down, they go up again and start doing the same thing. They're never like satisfied. Now we'll just relax. I think of what a life. It's full of anxiety, full of pain. And then, but feeling it. And then the sandpipers, same thing, the seagulls, and just like feeling so much suffering on all sides. It's like the illusion of material happiness and beauty was lifted. So just chanting. Then a little ladybug landed on my left hand, and I looked at the ladybug. And I guess growing up I thought ladybugs were sort of cute or auspicious. And I looked at the ladybug, and I thought, that ladybug is suffering. And I was feeling it. Oh yeah, and the dolphins, I shouldn't neglect to mention the dolphins. So that it's like this whole beautiful panorama was became a horrible scene of intense suffering. And it's like I was feeling it all. And when I saw the ladybug, I thought, wow, I don't think I can take much more of this. I mean, I'm going to have a breakdown. I'm feeling too much suffering. And I wanted to help them. That was the point. I was feeling their suffering, and I wanted to help them. But it was getting to be too much. And then I had a sort of a breakthrough that one gets when one chants with attention, with the effort to chant with attention. And it was like suddenly I not that Krishna's, not that I heard Krishna speaking, but I guess you could say I got the intuition in my heart, or the inspiration in my heart, that Krishna loves these creatures more than I do, more than I can imagine. He loves them so much that he accompanies them as the super soul in whatever species of life they enter. And not only does he love them more than I can ever imagine, he can actually do something to help them. I may want to help them, I might feel for them, but what is my capacity to help them? I may not even understand what's troubling them. Parents experience it. The baby's crying, they want to help the baby, but they don't know what the baby wants. They may think the baby's hungry, but it's something completely different. The baby may want something else. Or teenagers, or whatever. So, and I was thinking, not only does Krishna love them, but he can actually do something to help them. And what can I do? And then I thought, then this is sort of like the bottom of it. It's sort of got to the bottom of it. The problem here was that I was trying to take the position of Krishna. Of course, there's that verse, Bhoktaramya Gitapasham Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Shantim Richati. So when one recognizes that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, that Krishna is the proprietor of all planetary systems, and Krishna is the best friend, one can attain peace. And then I thought of what Srila Prabhupada always said, so simple, but so profound, that your best friend is not the one who poses as your best friend, but your best friend is the one who tells you that Krishna is your best friend. And suddenly this whole problem of how to help these suffering souls became very easy, because I didn't have to help them personally. I just had to direct them to Krishna, who can really help them. And it was such a relief. Such a relief. So this is our mission, to serve Krishna, but serving Krishna means, doing what Krishna wants, and Krishna wants that we should bring others to him. As he says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, his dearmost servant is he who preaches the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, Yare deke tarikaha Krishna upadesh. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, just present the message of Krishna. And that's something any of us can do. So it's actually very easy. Any of us can do it. Srila Prabhupada, two of his early disciples, Shamsundar and Malati, they were also the pioneers of the British Yatra. So they had a small daughter named Saraswati. And Saraswati, she used to approach people and these. We had an apartment in the Akash Ganga building on Warden Road in Bombay, very good neighborhood. So respectable gentlemen would come, and little Saraswati, she was just maybe 4 years old, she would approach them and say, "Do you know who is Krishna?" And then she would say, "Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And Srila Prabhupada said, that is preaching. She's repeating what she has heard from authorities. And even if she doesn't have full realization of what she's saying is perfect, because she's heard it from authority. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So any of us can preach. We just repeat, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chant Hare Krishna, and your life will be sublime. Whatever our realization is. Come to the Hare Krishna temple. And that will please Krishna. And I was very happy when I passed through London on my way to South Africa, just at the end of November. And I saw all the books around Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san, and I could feel the mood in the atmosphere to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. And I felt, this is pleasing Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is pleased with this. They have the spirit to distribute his books. And the books are as potent and effective now as ever. So many people I meet, and when I ask them how they came to Krishna consciousness, it goes back to a book. They got a book. So the formula that Srila Prabhupada gave us in 40 years ago, the formula still works. By giving them Prabhupada's book, we're giving them Krishna and Prabhupada, the message of Krishna through Prabhupada. And that is enough to awaken their sense of Krishna consciousness and begin them on the path. And so many of us are here because of Srila Prabhupada's books. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. So, I was just reminded of the time, and I'm very eager to hear His Holiness Radhanath Swami speak now. I'll just conclude by saying what you already know, that we should try to develop the habit of putting Krishna in the center, putting the holy name in the center, putting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the center, putting the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada in the center. And that change will make all the difference in the world. Our wife can be there, our children can be there, our house can be there, our business can be there, our work can be there, everything can be there. And with Krishna in the center, everything will be beautiful and peaceful. And as long as we persist in that habit that's been with us probably for many lifetimes, that we're the center, we're the lords, we're the enjoyers, we're the proprietors, there's going to be so many problems. And in the end, it's all going to be taken away from us anyway. So it's very wonderful that we're beginning the new year here at Bhaktivedanta Manor. My request is that we use this year, this valuable human form of life in this year, for its proper use, and that in this endeavor we help each other and support each other. We can't do it alone. And that that I can always remain in the association of such wonderful devotees, because I'm sure in this association, hearing their instructions, I'll be nudged along on the right path, back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Asjadya Satharine Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, Maharaj. Haribo. We asked His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj what the topic would be tonight. And he said, I will lead kirtan and see what emerges from my heart. Thank you.
It's easy sitting next to you. Just being next to you. Good thoughts come.
I will try to speak a few moments on some of the primary themes of His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj's beautiful dissertation. Maharaj was stressing of how much suffering comes to us in this world when we individually as well as collectively forget the purpose of life. In fact, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would often say, and Prabhupada would often quote him, that the only real problem in this world is a lack of Krishna consciousness. It's actually very simple. Krishna consciousness is so simple. Yet we take these simple things so much for granted because we've heard them for so many years. And we look for more complicated ideas to satisfy our minds. And mostly we become distracted and complicated by the complications of material nature. Krishna consciousness means to understand that I'm not this body, I'm an eternal soul. I'm nijayate mriyate va kadachit. I'm not subject to birth, I'm not subject to death. I am the witness, the driver within this vehicle of a body and a mind. And what is the nature of that Atma or soul? Mamaivam so jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana, that we're part and parcel of Krishna, the Supreme Soul. And the nature of Krishna, as the name Krishna denotes, is that the Absolute Truth is all attractive, the supreme reservoir of all pleasure. And Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas, as the part of God, our nature is, we are the servants of God. And because God is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, the all beautiful, all knowledgeable, all merciful, the reservoir of all love, the greatest pleasure in life is simply to make that connection. And how to make that connection? It's very simple. Giriraj Maharaj explained. Just to put Krishna, God, in the center. How many of you have heard before the analogy given from Srimad Bhagavatam that if you water the root of the tree, all the parts of the trees, the leaves and the flowers and the twigs and the bark will all be nourished? Raise your hand if you have heard this before. Well, if simply you understand it, you're completely liberated from all sufferings, and you're experiencing the highest ecstasies of divine love. That's really all it takes, is to understand that. Not theoretically, but really. It's that simple. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it so simple. How to water the root of the tree. Just be conscious of Krishna. By purifying our heart through chanting the holy names. And by always being in the mood of a servant. In other words, to give up our selfishness. It's that easy. If that's all you know and you understand it, you will attain the ultimate culmination of all philosophies, all religions, and all the scriptures, and all the worlds. Kapila Dev, he's describing the Vedic literatures, which are thousands of volumes. Mahabharata alone, just one volume is 100,000 verses. There's so many Vedic literatures. And not only Vedic literatures, he's talking about all the spiritual and religious literatures throughout the world. They're all meant to bring us to this very simple conclusion to never forget Krishna and always remember Krishna in that spirit of a humble servant, keeping Krishna in the center. We hear it, we speak it, but how much do we really make it the priority of our life? All the problems of our society, all the problems of our spiritual society that we live in, all the difficulties of the society of the world are missing this point. As Maharaj was saying, our tendency is to put ourselves in the center. And as soon as we become selfish, we become subjected to the endless complications of material existence. And how to deal with that? The complications are endless. Then Sri Prahlad Maharaj, 5-year-old child, he spoke such eloquent philosophy, but he was such a simple boy who had such simple conclusions. He looked around at the whole world and he looked at his father, Hiranyakashipu, who was a really complicated person. He was a Brahmin. And he was the son of a rishi. And yet he was really confused. Prahlad said that when we lose reference to the focus of the goal of life, then every time we try to solve a problem, our solution becomes a bigger problem than the original problem. And isn't that what's happening in the world? We want more convenience, we create technology, but we forget the basic premise. And when technology is developed on the basis of selfishness and greed, whether it's individual or collective, it's going to create bigger problems than the original problem. And then we have religion. Religion's also supposed to solve problems. But when we interpret our religion in a selfish way, when we interpret our religion that I am in the center, or we are in the center, instead of being compassionate beings, we become egoistic, then the religion becomes a bigger problem than without the religion. Whatever, whether it's science or technology or philosophy. We were recently discussing philosophy. How so many of these most profoundly brilliant philosophers, toward the end of their life, they went mad. They became either suicidal or they became really, really crazy. It's because they were trying with their minds to understand what's beyond the mind. You know, ordinary, selfish, materialistic people, they're just trying to gratify their prestige or gratify their senses. But philosophers are trying to make sense of it all. And they're trying to make sense of it, and in the process they see how futile the endeavor for material enjoyment is, and how futile the endeavor for prestige and pride and acquirement of property is. They want something more. They want to make sense of it. But the nature of the world, Krishna says, it's endlessly mutable. It's endlessly complicated. Unless you just come back to the very simple premises of why this world exists, who we are and what we're supposed to do. So when you try to keep solving problems on the basis of the intellect, they're so vast, and our intellect is so tiny in comparison. We get short-circuited. We become hopeless. Because what we're looking for is not a thing of the intellect. The real problems of the world are revealed. The solutions to the problems are revealed by the grace of God to the simple heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stressed how we always have to be simple in heart. Even if we're profound philosophers, we have to be very simple in heart. And what does it mean to be simple in heart? It means not to be complicated. Because everything's so simple. I'm an eternal soul, I'm part of Krishna, and I'm supposed to love Krishna, and this is the way to love Krishna. We chant and we serve. It's so easy. Someone may ask, well, the gopis were not great philosophers. They were the ultimate greatest philosophers because in their simplicity they realized the conclusion of all philosophy. And they were happy. So as soon as the living entity, as Giriraj Maharaj was saying, becomes selfish, wants to put herself or himself in the center, we want to be getting credit. We want to be the proprietor. We want to be the enjoyer, either mentally or physically. Then we cast ourselves in a vast ocean of complications. But if we get in the habit, as Giriraj Maharaj was saying, of practicing, what sadhana bhakti really is about putting practice about these simple basic principles. That our real enjoyment is in serving, not in acquiring. Our real enjoyment is to put the pleasure of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna in the center of our lives. Every problem can be so effectively addressed if we just keep this siddhanta in our focus. Whether it's relationship problems, or whether it's environmental problems, or economic problems, or health problems, or domestic problems, or any other type of problem. When we try to resolve it on the basis of the mundane level of the problem, even if we find a solution, it exasperates the problem eventually. It's like there's so many problems of war in this world. Prabhupada said they made a League of Nations after World War I. They made a United Nations after World War II. And has there ever been a time when there's not wars? Prabhupada said the simple pinprick in the whole system is so simple. Forgetting that Krishna's in the center. And even among devotees, due to material nature, because we're living in material existence, the propensity to argue, to disagree, to fight, to form positions, and then when you have positions, then to defend your positions, There's criticisms, there's fault findings, there's trying to undermine people. This has been going on in every religion throughout history, including our own, as well as today. These problems arise, and they are perpetuated when there's selfishness. But if we can just, and this is the way Prabhupada was, everything he said, the way he dealt with every issue was coming from being totally focused on the basic principles. If we water the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree will be satisfied. If we make Krishna happy, everything will be nice. Individually, when we try to make Krishna happy in our own hearts, we find something very deep. But to the degree we have our selfish egos, within our own minds there's so many complications and so many confusions, and it's exasperated by things that happen outside of us. Have any of you ever had that experience? But whatever the situation, how could I best please Krishna? How could I best please Guru? How can I best please the Vaishnavas? How could I best be a compassionate instrument to all living beings? If that's really our motivation and we keep that focused, then in our own personal life, big problems become insignificant. And in our situation among each other, so many disagreements, but most all disagreements are because we are not focused on that central point. Krishna wants harmony among his devotees. Even if there are serious disagreements, they should all be harmonized. They should all create an increase of love and trust if we're simply focused on the simple basis. But that's how Maya traps us. The illusory energy takes our focus away from the Siddhanta, the essence, the simplicity of the treasure we've been given, and gets us all caught up with our own passions and our own anxieties and frustrations and our own, essentially, our selfishness and all the differences we have with others. We'll become enemies. Have you ever met two devotees following Prabhupada who are enemies? How is that possible? It's actually not possible. If we're actually following Prabhupada, we won't be enemies. We'll be able to harmonize our differences on that basis of what's for the ultimate good. So harmonizing the temporary phenomena of this world, of what comes into our life, with the higher principle of bhakti, watering the root of the tree, is the only solution. And in this year of 2010, the world is really a mess. Economically, it's a mess. There's wars and potential wars going on in so many places. There's persecutions and harassments and genocides. There's ecological and economic disasters growing worse and worse. So many problems. We may boast that look at our progress. We have cured tuberculosis. We have cured smallpox. That's great. That's wonderful. But practically 1/3 of people are predicted to die of cancer. And what about depression and heart disease? You cure one disease, but another one causes as much or more suffering and death. Because unless we really focus on the center, we're not solving the problem of suffering. We're not really solving the problem of finding real happiness. And what Prabhupada, on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, envisioned this society to be is a place of shelter from all this selfish egoism. Many people who have come to this path, especially in the Western world, were frustrated with the superficialities and hypocrisies and all the fighting and judgmentalism of the way the conventional religions of their place were being practiced. It's not what their scripture says, but it's the way practiced. And then we hear Prabhupada speak, and it makes so much sense. It's so real. And people in the world today, as much or more than any other time in modern history, really need shelter. There are so many problems. And with all of these nuclear war, bombs, there's literally tens and thousands of nuclear bombs in storehouses, just one button away from making mass destruction. And people are pretty crazy, whatever nation they may be in. You get fearful and you just do. Very difficult. So Prabhupada and our acharyas envision that our society will give shelter to people. But just because we're the Hare Krishna movement, we're not going to give shelter to people. We have to be Hare Krishna devotees to give shelter to people. And what does it mean to be a Hare Krishna devotee? It means to keep that total focus in our lives in the simple essence of watering the root of the tree. Not being selfish, being compassionate. I am very much jealous of that ladybug that was on Giriraj Swami's finger. Or maybe she was crawling on his lotus feet and eating the dust. But the fact he was glancing on that ladybug with such compassion, with such concern, with such love, and wanting to give it Krishna, how fortunate. That ladybug may have been born as one of the children of the congregation of Bhaktivedanta Manor. It's the power of the prayer of a Vaishnava. So if we could only think about each other the way Giriraj Swami thought of an insect. By just trying to give each other Krishna. Just trying to share Krishna with each other. It's so beautiful. Why do we get caught up in all this stuff? We deal with the stuff, but we're always trying to share Krishna with each other. Never move an inch from that platform. And we become divinely empowered. And coming into this new decade, 2010, let us try to rehabituate ourselves to have simple hearts and resolve the complications of the world with the simple solutions, and never leave that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his first instruction to Sanatana Goswami, a couple volumes of instructions, but the first one was the seed that actually was everything. And all the other hundreds and hundreds of pages of instructions were just explaining the simple instruction. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas. That every living being is the eternal servant of Krishna. Krishna is the enjoyer. Our enjoyment is in serving, in pleasing. Everything is there. And Mahaprabhu elaborated. Gopi Bhartur Patakamalayor Dasa Dasa Dasanudas. What does it mean to be the servant of Krishna? To be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, and feel oneself anu. Very grateful. If you feel yourself qualified for something, you're not grateful. If you feel yourself unqualified, you're really grateful. So when you're humble, you could be grateful. And when you become grateful, you become full of greatness, because you become full of Krishna, who's great. So simple. And this was Giriraj Maharaj's explanation of how we should, in this simple and humble frame of mind, of just being a servant, we chant the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Shall we chant or should we go to sleep? Should we chant? Should we go to sleep? Thank you. Hare Krishna.